Hey everyone, and welcome to the How to Teach Anything podcast, the show where we interview different instructors, coaches, and educators to see what we can learn about the art of teaching. My name is Matt Eiler, and I'll be your host as we discuss best practices to teach anything. Let's get started. All right, our guest today is Liz Torres Zocchi. She is the owner of Mindful Yoga with Liz, an award-winning yoga studio located in the Hudson Valley of New York, which specializes in teaching yoga to kids. Liz, we're so excited to have you today. How are you doing?
Well, thanks for asking. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, no, we're so excited to have you. So as an outsider who has never done yoga before, I only know about what I've seen on like TVs and movies and different poses and breathing. Is that the type of stuff you teach? How does that look like when you're dealing with a class of kids?
Yeah, so we do all the traditional yoga poses that we would do in an adult class, but we have to meet kids where they are. So a lot of parents will think, oh, my son or daughter can't do yoga because they can't sit still. That will never happen. They're kids, they're not meant to sit still. So we use lots of props, we play games, we use music, we tell stories. And it's just about meeting them where they are and giving them the tools that they need so that they can have a successful practice.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know from my experience as a teacher, there's a very set of curriculum and standards that kids have to meet. So I would imagine that every class with you probably looks a little different, and you probably have to be pretty flexible depending on what the situation is that you're put in.
Yeah, so I remember when I first started teaching, kids like repetition. So, and the body likes repetition. So I would always do the same thing. And for the first probably 2 months, I just did the same thing. I read the same book. I played the same game. I played the same songs. And one of the little girls, she was only 4, and she told me she was tired of my book and she was bored. And it was very humbling to have a 4-year-old tell me that I wasn't meeting her expectations, but it was really important because I grew from that. And then I knew like I could go into class with a plan, but a loose plan so that I could be more flexible and be able to give them what they need, because they all have different personalities and they're all in different areas. So it was humbling, but it was a good learning experience.
Is there like a specific story in your mind that sticks out to you of like, I'm going to teach this today and it completely went off the rails? Like, how did that work?
Yeah. So even this past weekend for Valentine's Day, I said, I'm going to do a Valentine's Day lesson. I'm going to read. I had this great book that I got from the library that was a little bit of Valentine's Day, but also incorporated Black History Month for February. And I was super excited to read it. And the kids got in here and they were not having it. They had so much energy that they didn't want to sit and read a book and do yoga poses. So we went upside down. And these are 3 and 4-year-olds that are going upside down, learning how to use what muscles to use in order to do that. And they're expelling so much energy and getting what they need out of the class. So my lesson went out the window. I was able to bring it back at the end. We talked about what Valentine's Day was and first self-love and, something that they love about themselves, and they each got to share. But my initial plan was just right out the window. It wasn't working.
It's cool that you're able to like adapt and, figure out what they need, and it's nice. It's nice when, you're a business owner, so it's your business. So you don't really have to answer anyone. So you can do that. I think that's important for a lot of teachers to hear is, you've identified what a student's need is, in this case with teaching yoga, and you're not limited to one specific way of reaching that need. I think that's actually very freeing when you're able to realize that. So, talking about the students' needs, I know one of the things that you had mentioned in our pre-interview was dealing with anxiety and breathing. Would you say that's one of the number one needs that you're trying to meet when you teach yoga to young people?
Absolutely. There are so many kids have such big feelings. As adults, we can articulate those feelings. And sometimes even we struggle with that. But kids can't articulate. They don't know when they're feeling anxious, and they don't know when they act out and they're angry and they have what could be called, some might call it a meltdown. When they have those reactions, it's because their feelings are so big, they don't know what to do with them. So teaching them the breath is a huge tool. We have a big breathing ball that we use that I could actually grab. It's close. But it's a good visual to let
The
them
in and out, right?
yeah, to
Yeah.
let them know when they're, when you breathe in, your belly opens, and when you breathe out, your belly closes. So it moves up and it moves down. Different times that I'll say, like, oh, when do you think you can take a deep breath? And kids are really smart. They know, when I'm angry, when my brother took my toy, or when my mom got upset with me because I didn't clean my room. We make breathing sticks a lot, and they're just pipe cleaners and pony beads. And we put 5 on, and we take 5 deep breaths, and each time we move a bead over to the other side. So at the end of that, and I do this in schools and in the studio, but at the end I'll ask them, what do you think you can use it for? And they'll say frustrated, when I'm angry, when I'm tired, when I'm sad. They can identify the feeling, but they need assistance as to what to do with that feeling, what to do to kind of bring it back a little bit. So a lot of it is teaching them self-regulation and giving them the tools that they need so that they can identify their feelings and identify the best practice to, maybe walk away and take a minute and then come back and reassess the situation.
Yeah.
They need the tools.
So you touched on one of the things that I want to talk about. You said you go into schools and classrooms and teach this stuff there. How would you say that what you teach can apply to like a math teacher or a reading teacher? Because one of the things that I want to focus on with this show is best practices. And so you being a yoga instructor, I really believe there's something that me as a math teacher could learn from you. So how would you apply that? How have you seen that work in like traditional classrooms?
Yeah, absolutely. So I also do teacher trainings, and every teacher training I've done since 2016 has had at minimum 2 teachers from a preschool or an elementary school or high school. So when I go into the schools, the teachers are a big part of the class because they have to see the benefit so that they can utilize it. So most often I'll teach them something called star breath, and it's just using your hand, and it's just inhaling up a finger and exhaling down a finger. And we'll just go all the way through that. So the teachers know, okay, when so-and-so is having a tough day, Johnny might need to go sit in his desk for a minute, take out his breathing stick and do some deep breaths. Or if Johnny has a ton of energy today, Johnny might have to go out in the hallway and do a wall square because he has to expel some of that energy so that he can come back in, have a seat, and be ready for class.
Mhm.
Because especially now during, these kids have lived through a global pandemic. So some haven't socialized with other kids or teachers in 2 years, and some
Yeah.
are just learning, and some, they really need to be given the tools instead of taking something away. So taking it away is just going to reinforce that habit as being negative. It's not negative, it's just something that they need at that moment, and they need the tools to know what exactly they should go ahead and do.
Have you ever gotten resistance from that? Because I know my background is a special education teacher, so we were constantly dealing with students who had those big feelings and weren't able to regulate. And I always got at times pushback from some more traditional old school teachers. Have you ever experienced that? And how would you argue the benefits of what you teach to someone who maybe is resistant and has that traditional view of you sit in your chair, you look at the board, and that type of thing?
I haven't. I'm fortunate. I have
Yeah.
not had that resistance. I think if I did, I would just ask the teacher to just step back and watch and have a beginner's mind and just see. And I think for the most part, I think they would, within 1 or 2 classes, quickly realize that it really does help bring their focus back.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, from what you're describing, it's kinda like you give a little, you get a lot, these little things
Right.
can really help you in the long run, even though they may not be, the thing that a traditional teacher is used to, um, and the benefits are there. So, you talked a lot about, like, breathing and, the focus and that type of thing. Um, how structured is your class? Is it more play focused? Is there like an order of operations kind of thing? What do you like to focus on when you're teaching this type of stuff?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. So I always, and the teachers that work here as well, we always begin each class the same, we end each class the same. And then the middle is kind of like the meat and potatoes. So the middle is where we really focus on what the kids need. So if it's a younger class, we might sing songs and play some games that will focus on healthy peer interaction. Maybe we'll do some partner poses, we'll focus on eye contact. If it's an older kid, we might talk about real life problems. We play a game, Rose, Bud, Thorn, where the rose is like the highlight of your week. The thorn is the thing that maybe has frustrated you throughout the week, but the bud is what you can take away from it.
Mhm.
So it's really about finding out what they need, and everything that they tell me is information, right? So they're giving me this information that I can kind of store in the back of my mind and know, okay, we might need to work on some self-confidence. So maybe today we'll do some arm balances.
How long does a student usually stay with you? Because it sounds like you're able to build quite a rapport with these kids, that you know what they need to work on and that type of thing.
Yeah, so it's really special. Our youngest, we start as little as 6 weeks.
Okay.
Um,
What does that look like? What does that look like?
It's so cute. A lot of crossing the midline, lots of tummy time, teaching them
Okay.
how to get ready to crawl. And it's really a great way for their caregiver and the baby to bond
Sure.
and to start to create this special activity that they can do together. And then they move on to mommy and me. And then at 2, they can do drop off. And they start as young as 2 to get dropped off. So my oldest student is 19. She actually just left to go take an adult teacher training because she loves yoga so much and she wants to teach adults. So she just left this month, and she's 19, and she started taking classes with me when she was 15.
Okay.
And then I have other kids that started in the youngster class about 4 years old, and now they're 9, and they're moving into the tween classes. And it's really sweet. It's sweet to see them grow. And it's different because in yoga, we don't have recitals. We don't
Mhm.
have something that, we can have the parents line up and show them what they do. The learning is in what the parents see the results at home.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it too. Most of the kids that come, their parents are either yoga practitioners or they are highly invested in their children's well-being and have been referred to by a doctor or a therapist or a school teacher, someone who knows that the benefits would really, um, just be beneficial for their child.
So do you have like a goal list in your head? Like when you see, oh, Johnny walks in, like I know these are the things that I want to. You mentioned like, oh, this kid needs confidence. Do you find yourself with this rapport building like a set of goals that you want each student to have?
Yeah, and we talk about goals in class as well. So as they start to get older, I want them to set their own goals.
Sure.
And I want to teach them how to use their yoga practice to attain their goals. And their goals aren't always, sometimes it'll start out superficial, like doing an arm balance or going upside down, but then it'll start to materialize into more of a tool that they can use. Maybe I want to make better decisions with the friends that I have. Maybe I
Mm.
want to make sure that I tell so and so they can't talk to me that way, and I want to be strong and stand up for myself. So
Yeah.
it's important for them to create their own goals too. But yeah, it's really great to see them
Yeah, I'd
grow. And
imagine that takes like a sense of ownership. That
right,
probably helps you in the long run, keep your students, because now it's not just, oh, Liz is telling me to do this. It's, man, I have this progress and goal that I want to work on, and you've helped them structure that.
right, and they feel better leaving. They know, like, the end of every yoga class, we take shavasana, which is just resting pose, and
Mhm.
it's a guided meditation, and they lay down, and it's we call it, for the younger kids, I call it a brain break, because
Mhm.
they need to understand that sometimes their brain is just really frazzled and they just need to kind of take a deep breath and slow down and see how they feel afterwards. And we'll always do a check-in. So I ask them in the beginning how they feel, and then at the end to give me a word about how they might be feeling. And sometimes the word's the same, but sometimes it's completely changed. And it's important for them to know now early on, especially in a world where we are so engrossed in technology and we're consistently moving and going from one thing to the next. Kids are really busy. So it's important for them to recognize, hey, I might need 5 minutes. I think I need to relax and go sit and take a break for 5 minutes and have that brain break where they can sit and breathe and think of a place where they feel safe or calm or relaxed. And sometimes that place is the yoga studio.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, that sounds really, like I said before, you give a little, you get a lot. You're creating this space for these students to learn how to self-regulate so that when they return to the yoga studio or the classroom or dance, martial arts, baseball, whatever it is, they're better equipped to deal with whatever it is that you're teaching them or the teacher is teaching them um, in that space. I mean, would you agree with that? Like it's all about equipping them, it sounds like.
Absolutely. And it travels into all areas of their life. And they realize that and they see the difference and their parents see the difference. And that's where I feel like I reap all the benefits, because just getting them to see that they have the control is just, I don't even know if there's any words for it. It's just an
Yeah.
amazing thing to watch.
Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of students maybe because I was a public education teacher for 10 years, and I think that a lot of students may sometimes feel that they don't have control over their learning. That I go to class, I sit down and I listen, and so to what you're doing, incorporating goal creating and teaching them how to manage their feelings sounds like you're giving them a lot of control over what they learn, which is a really interesting viewpoint to look at teaching.
Yeah, I even have some teachers who will see and ask me for suggestions. There's one school in particular that I'm thinking of. One of the boys in the second grade class he has a lot of he's on sensory overload,
Mhm.
a good portion of the day. So I rolled him up in a burrito because he couldn't rest. Because sometimes, we think about a lot of stuff. We have a to-do list in our brains and our monkey mind is going. So I had him lay at one end of his mat and I rolled him up in a burrito, and he needed that hard, warm texture against his body.
Yeah.
And he rested the entire time. It was a good 10-minute rest. And the teacher had sent me a text later on and said, I noticed that he was really able to redirect himself and focus when we got back to class. Is there any other suggestions that you have that I could use for him when he feels like he has no control and he starts to spiral? And
Yeah.
so it's nice to be able to brainstorm with the teacher too, because then we can share information, and the information she gives me helps me provide a better yoga class and experience for him. And then the information that I can give her hopefully provides a better classroom experience for him.
Yeah, and it's funny, you just mentioned something that the one of the reasons we wanted to start this show is, because I believe as a teacher, I can learn from you as a yoga instructor and vice versa. And you just mentioned rolling them up in a burrito. And one of the things that when I was teaching special ed, we did was for students that had sensory overload, we had compression vests, which,
Yeah.
were these clothes that tighten the body so that the sensory overload is subsided. And what you just described, that is a compression vest.
Right.
But you're doing it in a fun and a unique way where a student is like, this feels good, this helps me, and it's fun. So this is just a perfect example in my eyes of what you do can help me, even though we teach very different things.
Right.
Yeah, that's really cool. All right. Last thing I want to talk, I'm going to give you a few minutes. Tell me, what is your favorite drill or topic or thing to teach? If I said you've got 5 minutes, teach me anything. What's your favorite drill? Put you on the spot that you like to teach with the kids.
Uh, arm balances or inversions. Big self-confidence boosters. You can do it as soon as the kid starts walking, they can go upside down. They don't necessarily have to stand on their head or their hands to do it. They can put their hands on the floor, put their feet against the wall. They make an L shape. It's a great confidence booster, great way to boost your self-esteem. Inversions are amazing for the body. It reverses the blood flow, taps into the parasympathetic nervous system, sends that signal to the brain like it's okay, you can leave fight or flight mode. And the same thing with arm balances. A lot of kids think like, I'm not strong enough, I can't do this. And I always tell them, It's not that I can't, it's I'm still working on it. I'm not there yet. There's never a good side or a bad side of your body. You're just one side is more conditioned than the other. So we work a lot on boosting the self-confidence in that way. And I think it's an amazing thing because a lot of kids are shy and timid, and especially with everything that the pandemic has brought on, they haven't really been exposed to a lot of different things. So it's nice when you see a kid come in and they're shy and they're nervous and you have them go upside down or learn this arm balance, and all of a sudden they're so excited that they can't wait for the next thing. And then that's all they want to do every time they come.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, what a cool, positive thing. That's so great. Well, Liz, thank you so much for being with us today, and
Thank
teaching us a
you.
little bit about teaching. If you're a listener in the Hudson Valley, make sure that you check out Mindful Yoga with Liz, for some really, really great classes that she offers to all ages, correct?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have children, adult, and family yoga.
Awesome. Awesome. And don't forget to check her Mindful Yoga with Liz out on social media. She's on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Thank you again so much, Liz. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Awesome. And thank you to all our listeners who are tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. And if you're looking for more How to Teach Anything content, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest updates about upcoming episodes, and more teacher tips. My name is Matt Eiler. This has been the How to Teach Anything podcast, and we'll see you next time.